go.
Policy needs to change. I'm proud of the young people who have been pushing that Black Lives Matter movement. We brought the Confederate flag down. We've made sure that symbols of hate are unacceptable in America, but now we need to move forward even more. What we don't need is immigration policy like that has been spewed by the hateful comments of Republican candidates for president. Donald Trump, it's appalling and unacceptable that he would refer to Mexicans as rapists and killers, instead of people who just want to come here to make a better way of life for themselves and their families. And then I can't even use the vulgar term that he has used and that Jeb Bush has doubled down on, and many of those Republican candidates have called children of immigrants, who are not the vulgar word that they've used, but are citizens. Citizens. This week there has been a debate on the Republican side over whether to deny or take away citizenship from babies born in this country under the 14th Amendment, who all have legal constitutional citizenship. That is what the Democratic Party stands for. Equality, equality of opportunity, making sure that we can support the cornerstones of a middle-class life. That's what you'll get from a Democratic president, and I will work every single day, along with so many of you, to make sure that the Democratic nominee for president is elected, the 45th president of the United States, and we will do it on the shoulders of Iowa voters like we have for many, many election cycles. On to victory!
Yeah, well, you know, liberals can never be happy destroying every vestige of American history. No, as Debbie Was-A-Man Schultz said, they've got to do more. And they cannot ever say radical Islam, so naturally, Debbie Was-A-Man Schultz can't say anchor babies. See, the Democrats love to use the Constitution when it suits their agenda while simultaneously destroying it for every other part of America. And yes, Debbie Was-A-Man Schultz, you did get one thing correct in your little speech there. You were right. You have been electing Democrats on the shoulders of Iowans. In fact, you've been electing Democrats on the shoulders of all Americans. And today, we wear it like an albatross around our necks. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the Meat and Potatoes Show. Good morning, America, and welcome once again to the hardest working show on the social media today, the Meat and Potatoes Show. I am your host, Christopher Mader, and we are broadcasting here from New Ambush Studios in Worcester, Mass. on Northern Light Radio Network, WNLMradio.com. And this morning, our guest, and proving once again that we are broadcasting nationwide, Republican mayoral candidate Katherine Daigle calls in all the way from Irvine, California. And after the interview, we've got great music, recorded live, comedy, controversy, and the diatribe. So sit back and relax. Be sure your seat backs and tray tables are in the upright position. Helmets and safety glasses are required. And if the content of the show offends you, you know what? We really don't care, because we are a no apologies radio show. The Meat and Potato Show, conservative talk, and awesome rock, broadcasting on Northern Lights Radio Network, WNLMradio.com. And yes, once more, onto the breach, folks. Here we go. As the candidate interviews roll into 2015, 5-6 years we've been doing this. And one of the great things that we do when we have the candidate interviews is the candidate just doesn't show up once and that's it, we move on to the next one. No, they repeat, they come back many, many times. And it is so, with such honor and such pleasure that I welcome back another guest calling in from Irvine, California, Republican mayoral candidate Katherine Daigle. Katherine, good evening to you over there, and good morning to everyone over here. How are you, Katherine?
Fine, how are you?
Absolutely fantastic. So, Catherine, you know, we were talking earlier off online. You guys lost power. I mean, what the heck happened out there? What was it? Jerry Brown just shutting down half of California to save the planet, or what happened to you guys?
Well, this happened in my city. It actually did not happen statewide. It was a small group, about 100 homes, that lost electricity Friday around midnight, and it wasn't fully restored until Tuesday. It was an infrastructure problem that most states have currently. Their cities and states aren't putting money into the infrastructure. So, that's what happened.
Jesus. And how much is this gonna? Were there any? Now, did it just affect the Irvine area, or where was it specifically?
Specifically in Irvine, specifically about 3 blocks in Woodbridge, which is a community in Irvine. And the silliest thing about all of it is the amount of money that we pay in taxes. This is a very, very expensive area. I bought years and years ago, so I couldn't even afford the homes now for what they're going for.
Right.
And you would absolutely think that the city or Southern California ensign would come over and said, your power goes out for X amount of days or X amount of hours. No, and it was a disaster because they would flicker on and off. They blew up my cable, blew up my computer, it blew up every piece of electronic equipment, not to mention food spoilage and no air, and we're at 100 degrees every day.
Are you kidding?
It was hard. It was difficult.
That's unbelievable. An infrastructure problem. You're right. Like, what are your? I don't know. You can say it's none of my business. What are property taxes down there? What is it per thousand?
Oh, my house is about $7,000
a year.
Yeah. But again, it's interesting that you brought that topic up because currently California is trying to decrease or remove Prop 13, I believe it is, which is they're trying to increase the property taxes in the area. It's Prop 13 that was passed 37 plus years ago. And what it does is it takes property taxes and only allows them to fluctuate 1 to 2%. Currently, the Democrats, the progressives here in California, are trying to repeal it. So, essentially, if they can repeal it, that would blow up the amount of property taxes that we pay.
Sure.
And that includes businesses as well. So, you can bet there's going to be a lot of people out of work, millions of people out of work.
And you can bet that they're going to do it. I can see them do it. I mean, California is in serious debt. It's a total moonbat state. It's just like Massachusetts, only 9 times the size. So I can only imagine. And you would think that a state with that large a vicinity, that population, the amount of resources, the potential for business, the potential for things to actually go their way. I'm sorry, folks. California used to be that way. That it would be in a lot better financial shape than it is. But now, in an affluent area like you are in Irvine, you're having your basic infrastructure just completely collapse on you. And not just completely collapse, but like you said, it somehow affected like every electronics and your cable. I mean, there must be crews all over the place from practically every utility company, just everywhere all over that city trying to fix stuff. Or is it the opposite?
It's the opposite. It was funny. We were not informed, and I guess my daughter was walking the dogs, because it's been very, very humid here, so she was going at night. They have these massive generators that they go out in, but I never noticed because they have security guards around them. So I was shocked because the neighborhood, and we're one of the safest cities in the country, according to the policy for this length of time. And I was very surprised. But it happens all over the country, so we're not any different than anyone else.
Certainly, right. Katherine, one of the things I want to talk to you about as we move along in this interview is obviously there's been a lot of heat because of what Donald Trump said the other day about anchor babies, and it seems to be Lou Dobbs said something about how he's basically burning the PC playbook, which I think is a good thing. I think people are really waking up. But you wrote a piece on your blog site about the problems of taking in these massive amounts of illegals and how it's going to affect the Social Security. And one of the great things you said towards the end is about how it's basically going to blow the entire system up if we continue to do this. And here's where my confusion comes in, and then I want you to take it from there and talk about the blog piece. My confusion is you have on the one side Democrats saying how, well, the illegals, they contribute, they pay income taxes, and they pay into Social Security. Okay, great, all right, put that argument in a box somewhere. Now you have this other argument that's saying, well, employers aren't supposed to be hiring illegals. If they do, ICE goes in and raids them, the company's shut down, everyone's arrested, and then the illegals are deported. Now, at the same time, you also have this other thing where there's actually legislation that benefits employers by hiring illegals because now they don't have to pay into Obamacare. So which box is it, Katherine? Is it box A, where they pay into Social Security and it helps, or box B, where you're not supposed to hire them, or box C, where the legislation benefits companies who hires illegals? Are you as confused as I am, Katherine?
Of course I am. It's interesting that you brought up what Trump has brought up, which I find him very enchanting. By the way, I've written 2 articles on birth rights and illegals coming into the country and having anchor babies. Earlier in the year, in March, we had an FBI sting in their city where there has been a lot of influx of tourism where for a short period of time they would come over here, have their babies, leave the country, and leave the bills here. They would purchase property and other things like this so their families can come over here because they have a child that is an American-born citizen. Now, twofold issues come to blow here. First, people who live here will never be able to afford a home because these other foreign people coming in here are boosting the real estate prices. They can afford it. They're buying homes outright with money. Now, that's a good thing, but it's a bad thing for Americans. Now, let's speed up 5 months later where we have Social Security being given and also health care, schooling, and everything else for our own families are losing in that battle as far as being able to get health care. I have a friend who has cancer, bone cancer. He cannot get Obamacare. But if you're an illegal alien or someone coming in on a tourist visa, you can take all this off at no cost.
Right.
So there's a lot of problems with the struggle for Americans maintaining just a way of life to survive. But essentially any health care or welfare or food stamps, because there's so many of them on these special programs, if you don't meet this particular criteria that they have set up, as Americans, you're not going to get it.
Certainly.
Of course, the illegals that are coming across the border having their children, no problem. They are able to get drivers. You can't even get a driver's license, a date to take a driver's license test for a still month because they're backed up with illegals trying to get driver's license.
I want to read. I want to read. I want to read from. Yeah, Mike, you got to shut.
Hey, how's it going?
You got to shut your thing off, Mike. You got to shut your your soundboard off.
Oh, sorry.
It's coming through. Anyway, I want to read the last section here, Catherine, of your article here. We won't even get too far into illegal immigrants, who it seems are constantly being offered amnesty and paths to citizenship that could potentially exacerbate this problem even further. Suffice it to say that Social Security is just one reason that the open-door immigration policy favored by American leftists is an invitation to disaster. She goes on to say, and I won't read the rest of it, the United States has finite resources. And demographics issues such as the post-World War II baby boom are making it so that this nation will have a hard enough time taking care of its own elderly. And I'll end it there. But that's what the problem where we're at is we keep adding these numbers. And there's a piece I'm going to play later on after the interview about the never mind the illegals. We're hovering around about 1 million legal immigrants every year, which is fine. I understand that's their right, that's their policy, and you know, we are a nation of immigrants. However, as we go along, our system is still continuing to be overwhelmed, because even the general population, the so-called citizen and Americanized population, isn't meeting their quota of the population growth. So what we're having here now is an entire influx that is overtaking the population growth of the United States by immigrants, legal and illegal. So Catherine, go ahead from here. Respond to the last part of your blog site here. And yes, Michael, welcome. We'll get to you in a second.
Yeah, my point was, as you've clearly read it, is that we aren't thinking of ourselves any longer. We are just thinking of the immigration and how we can take care of the illegals coming into this state. And not politically motivated. My belief is that since where I come from here in California, we have a lot of progressives that need that vote, and they will do whatever's necessary to make sure that these votes are counted, regardless of whether they are Americans or not. The problem is, our seniors, we have seniors that can't even get a meal or can't even get help with homebound. That's a problem. And their Social Security could run out in less than 5 years.
Certainly, right. Yeah, it's not going to, I'll tell you, it's not even going to be there for me when I get it. And you mentioned something, there were some dates that you mentioned. Everyone agrees it's anywhere between late 2030 and 2040 that it's pretty much, I think you had mentioned something that they're only going to be able to pay 77 cents on the dollar. That's actually covered, so we start running a huge deficit, and then it's pretty much bankrupt by 2050. So it's really insane. You mentioned though something about people will be making sure that certain people get to vote, and I know what you're talking about. Is what's going on in your community? Are people looking out for that? I want to segue into your mayoral race here. So let's start with that. I mean, what's going on with the voting, the process of voting in Irvine, California? Are people looking out for fraudulent voting?
It's funny that you should mention that. First of all, my city does not really, the incumbents that are currently in office have been running every year forever. And they don't really put out what they're going to run for or what they're going to do. They generally stay quiet, so almost 3 months before the actual election.
Really?
Now, the mayor has decided to move forward into a higher seat. And if he doesn't make it, he's already filed his form to run again as mayor for the 3rd consecutive term. And he's actually the one that put up a mandate
Right.
Yeah. And in last year's election, there was, from the current council, there was a significant amount of Koreans, Chinese, I believe, I'm not really certain of the particular nationality of each of them. It was Asia, though, that was trying to turn the election and into who they wanted to make sure that was in there, and which is certainly they have a Korean mayor. And
Interesting. You should.
Well supported from outside the country. It was supported in China with a lot of big billboards for what housing is here and traveling and coming here, and so there was a lot of meetings held where the citizens of this, the residents of this city, who was not allowed to attend. When they tried to attend them, they were turned away at the door.
Yeah,
So,
totally illegal, right?
Yeah, we had veterans cemetery that we wanted to come up, and a lot of us Americans wanted to see it because it's in a marine base where currently they are growing what is called the Great Park, which has got significant housing there,
Right.
and millions and millions of dollars of housing, and they're being advertised in tanks.
Sure.
So coming out and buying the properties and going back home, and they don't want to see Veterans Cemetery in their backyard. It's in, I guess, that feng shui. That's what
Hey, you should send me this information. If you've got some information, you should send it to me because I'd like to look at it, read it, and I can talk about it on my sites and stuff. I want to bring in my buddy Mike Coombes here, calling in from. You still in Framingham, buddy?
That's right.
Yeah. What's going on, man? So you've been listening to the conversation. So when we started off the show, I don't know if you listened to the show about what Debbie Wasserman Schultz said about some of the how she can't even come to even say the term anchor babies, and I'm talking to my good friend Katherine Daigle from Irvine, California here, and we're talking about her election, and she's been telling a compelling story. This is the second time she's told this too, about some of the expansions of the immigration population in her part of the state and the effect of it, just on the economy and just on services that are being offered by the county, the town, and the state themselves. But Framingham, look at Framingham. Framingham, I'm going to use the word, it's a diverse town, but there are. That's a good word. Mike's laughing. That's a good word. That's a good word to use. But how long have you lived there? You walk the streets, you see it every day, don't you?
Yeah, but what's interesting about Framingham, it's all Brazilians, and they're all really clustered down, due to zoning laws and land use laws and all that. They're all really just clustered downtown, so to speak. I don't want to, not purely segregated, but it's not like when you go to say Somerville or Lynn or Chelsea, where it's just a whole lot that's taken over. But it's interesting though. The past couple of years, we've seen a huge difference in demographics in terms of movement.
That's right. I remember years ago when I used to go down to Framingham, and I used to be in bands. We played in Framingham a lot. I did notice the huge Brazilian population at the time. But that was years ago, and it must be explosive right now. But like you said, it is enclave. But Katherine, this is another issue also. Mike just said that, and he's right. There's this tendency to enclave. There's no more assimilation. Mike's grandparents, my grandparents, Katherine, your grandparents, wherever they came from, one of the first things they wanted to do was become an American and become an American citizen and assimilate into the culture. That's why Mike's here, I'm here, and you're here. Are you seeing that enclave mentality down in your area as well?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes, we have, like I said, a significant 40% population of Asian, and they do speak American, rather English. Our mayor has a difficult know why. And he has a PhD, so I'm not sure. He has a very difficult time with English language. But for the most part, my family's from Russia. We all assimilated into the United States. My grandmother, fled from Hitler with my father when he was very, very young. So we did our best, or my family did their best, to make sure that they could speak English. And that in fact, my grandmother taught me a little bit of Russian. So I understand what you're saying, and unfortunately, we in this state have a real difficult time with Mexicans not assimilating. We have 18 million languages. You go to the DMV, and we must have 40 different languages to take the DMV test.
And that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. What's it look? Well, sorry to interrupt you there, but Mike, you work at you've started to get into city government there. You must see that on forms and stuff. It's like, what's up with all these languages here? Are you seeing?
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. I mean, they keep saying, you only want to have English on official government forms and all this. It doesn't mean you're infringing someone else's right, their language. It's just that this is the way we do things. Every time you pick up the phone with R&B or any kind of department, mascot or whatever, it's always press 2 for Spanish. It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Katherine, let's move on here also. I want to talk a little bit about, I'm going to paraphrase here, which we know about Hillary and her server problems that are going on. Now, okay, we all know that throughout American history, that there's always been graft and corruption to a certain degree in our American government, our local governments. I mean, just read about Tammany Hall, read about the Chicago machines, read about how the mafia was involved down in Florida in some of their elections back in the 40s and 50s. And, but eventually, either people were indicted, people were arrested. Eventually, in the 70s, one president had to resign. Katherine, I'm going to ask you a question, and if the answer is no, then this will be one of the shortest questions I've ever asked. But, I mean, are you seeing any type of corruption in the local area down in your neck of the woods, vis-a-vis the type of corruption that we see today in our government?
Yes.
There you go. Well, answer it. Take it from there.
I can't say that enough. Yes, I was part of a masterful plan in the 2012 election, and so it happened. We had filtered millions of dollars being filtered into this election, worse than any other state. In most of the United States, there is more money funneled into this city. Millions of dollars.
What?
For every election. Always every election.
Well, why is
Chicago.
that? Why is that? I mean, is it a huge? You must have a lot of delegates or something down there for the convention. That's the only thing I can think of. I know California has a lot of delegates to begin with, but you must have some really key people down there, which is why that's happening down there.
No, actually.
Okay.
We do have people here, but that's not the reason why we have lots of money being filtered and funneled to take over an election in the city. We have a huge amount of development going on here.
Ah, right.
Billions of dollars of development. This city is, like I said, it's lauded as one of the safest cities in America. It has the very best school districts in America. And up until just about 5 years ago, you could probably buy nothing big, maybe a small cottage home or a townhome for about $300,000. Now you can't even look at it unless it's over $400,000. But it's just everyone wants to be here, and everyone wants to develop here. Even in my small little Woodbridge community, where I am elected to the Woodbridge Village Association, it's a homeowners association, but we have 30,000 homes here. We have a problem
Sure. Let's switch gears a little bit here, and then we're going to bring Mike in because you had mentioned earlier the Seattle situation and Sharia law, and I don't know why. Ed Baker, he was running for president. He called out of Portland, Oregon. I think it was last week, and he called the week before. Yeah, it's a big thing that's going on out there, and apparently Seattle isn't learning the lesson from, Sharia law taking over other parts of the world. But you wanted to talk about that, so why don't you take over, and then I'll bring Mike in here on that.
Yeah, I had a short discussion. It came to my attention, I believe, from you at one point, or something I heard on your program, and I just kind of looked it up because I couldn't believe what you were saying. So first I went to tell her Floyd Geller, and I know how those people feel about her. So I followed some of her interests, and then I found information on the Seattle mayor who wants to incorporate Sharia law so Muslims can purchase homes.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Zero interest.
It was like 2 o'clock in the morning when I was reading this, and I laid back down to think about it, and it didn't even occur to me right off the bat, but I thought, you are going to force small businesses into accepting Sharia law in order to do business. I know that's going to come of this. They say it isn't, but it will. And it'll happen just like the gay marriage thing, just like Christians, just like everything else. People will be forced to do business and not make any money off it because Sharia law doesn't expect them, I guess, to earn interest on money. So this small people will hurt from this.
Right. And the thing is that because the no interest, because, and I love how that, if you're Christian, you're not allowed to do these things. You're not allowed to say these things because there has to be this false impression of separation of church and state. But yet, when it comes to Islam, everything is somehow allowed. But this is part of that topsy-turvy world that we're living in now. Mike, let's get you in on here. Mostly Brazilians in Framingham. But I know there is. I know there's a Muslim population there. But they're very small in number, I would imagine. What are you seeing in your city?
Nothing when it comes to the whole Sharia thing, to my knowledge. I mean, they kind of keep to themselves, They're like maybe 0.1% of the population.
Right.
This whole religious assault. You're right. The double standard is ridiculous. When it comes to Christians, it's like, you can't frame schools. You can't, have a cross or 10 commandments in like a public square, or somehow it violates the separation of church and state.
That's right.
When it comes to not just Muslim, but pretty much anything else, when it's ever someone else, some third world religion or mysticism or some crap, all of a sudden it's, it's their freedom. You get what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah, I do.
It's a weird double standard, especially when you have like this whole business thing. You have to serve someone, regardless of your religious beliefs. And the news media, the mainstream media keep like lying about it, saying no one's getting prosecuted or going to jail. There are so many businesses in a lot of Western states that are like under pressure to like do that kind of stuff.
I'm going to bring that up to Katherine. Katherine, we see that. That weird dichotomy there, and Mike makes a good point in that. If you're a Christian baker, they force you to bake against your religious beliefs, to serve customers. And I always thought that in America, as a business owner, you have the right to refuse service. It's like, look, I don't want to do business with you. Don't you have that right? I mean, I thought that's the whole private contract thing in this document. What did they call it? It was
limited contract.
Oh, it was a document written back in the 1700s. It was 4 pages long. What was it called? It slips my mind at this moment. But something begins with a C. I forget what it is. Anyway, we're moving on to the end of it. Pun intended there. Anyway, but Katherine, we see that double standard down there. Whereas if you are a Muslim halal shop or bakery, they're somehow exempt. And I mean, you've got to be seeing this down there as well, Katherine.
Actually, we do have a huge, significant Muslim base here in my city, but we do not. That's really thinking, even hot shops, which I'm against as well. So, I mean, they're coming down this way, and we're about to agree to have this, but we don't allow cigarettes. So I'm not real sure what that theory is, but I expect it'll happen. If this mayor gets away with it, I'm assuming, don't we have a large medical population in Michigan?
Dearbornistan. Dearborn. It's Dearborn, Michigan, but it's now called Dearbornistan. That's what everyone just calls it. Because it is. Yeah, and if you're white or if you're Christian, you're summarily cut out of various businesses. You're not allowed to operate your business. You're not allowed to protest. City councils have been taken over. Most of the council meetings are now closed to the general public. And there's an entire... It has been taken over. I don't have all that stuff in front of me. I've been reading it. This was something I was reading about 6 or 7 months ago. But but this is what happens. You end up, folks, here's what happens. And there's a great YouTube video buried somewhere on my YouTube channel. I'll have to find it for another show. Basically what ends up happening when you have a Muslim population moving in, when you're at 1 or 2%, like Mike said, they keep to themselves, you really don't hear much about them. You start growing to anywhere 4, 5 to 6%, they start becoming active in the community, again, which is fine. I mean, if they're American citizens, they want to be part of the community. But now you start reaching 8 and 10% of the population. Now what they start doing is they start imposing their will upon the rest of the city, the rest of the community. They want special treatment. They want special adherence to certain religious rights that they have. And the city or the state, for some strange reason, just somehow bows to it. It's really crazy how this happens.
They're afraid of getting sued. That's what it is.
Again, Mike's right. That's the other thing. They'll bring legal lawsuits against the city. So the city wants to avoid that. So now they bring in more people. Now you're up to 15, 18, 20% of the population. Now they start running things. They start controlling areas of the city, of the town, of the community, the county, and they start really taking over. They start actually pushing other people out. Once you reach a 50% population, it's all done. You're all done. There's no, there are areas in England right now, if you go into areas of England, they literally have patrols on the edges of the towns where if you're just passing through, because you got to drive through that town to get to the other town where you live or whatever, they won't let you through. This is a Muslim community. You're an infidel. You're not allowed here. People have been harassed, robbed. Women have been raped. Oh, and let's talk about that too. Oslo, Norway, rape capital of Europe. 95% of all rapes in Oslo, Norway are committed by Muslim men against white, blonde women. And that's my little piece in there. But Catherine, it's happening down there. It seems to be happening all along. And it's part of that sanctuary city thing. And let's segue into that. Steinle got killed a few weeks back by an illegal immigrant. This is one of the things that has really kind of, I think, galvanized this conversation around illegal immigration too. And it sort of, to a certain degree, unfortunately, vindicated everything Donald Trump had said about what's going on with our illegal immigration policy. What is California doing, though? What is the liberal media out there in California saying about this tragic death?
Well, unless you're watching Fox News, you won't hear it anyplace else.
Right.
Because Bill O'Reilly brought up Kate's Law. I wrote a story on Kate's Law, and I am hoping that the legislation can be passed. So at least after, and I still think Kate's Law is so lenient. It was if you committed X amount of crimes, you're automatically deported. Now, you've got to, even if the state agrees to do it, where does the federal fit into this?
Right.
The feds aren't doing anything.
No.
They're doing nothing. So, it's time. I don't think anything's going to come to pass until we get a new president. And I suspect are looking at so much brouhaha with Donald Trump bringing these ridiculous Republicans to stand up for what's going on with their Republican voters, that it's going to come to a head. They're going to have to commit to something because it's sick of it.
Yeah, I think the people are waking up. What do you think, though, Mike? You know, Kate's Law, and yeah, I mean, Framingham's probably not even talking about this, and we all know that it's. I mean, we had talked about how the Brazilians are enclaved, and there's a small Muslim population, but there's illegals. They're all over Framingham. I've been to Framingham.
All over Mass.
What's that?
All over Mass.
It's all over Mass. Yeah, Mass is basically a sanctuary state too. Yeah,
Well,
and
it's funny because there's a lot of mayors fighting back. What's his name? The Lawrence mayor. He tried to stop the whole city from becoming a sanctuary city, and the city council overrode him.
yeah, right. Tom Duggan from Valley Patriot, he's writing about that. He's reporting on that. My good friend Tom Duggan. Yeah,
Mayor Rivera.
Yep, Rivera.
Campaign a few
Right,
years ago.
Mayor Rivera in Massachusetts. So, Catherine, what about other mayors in surrounding towns and cities? Is there any type of conservative / Republican coalition being built by other mayors or other candidates like yourself in and around other cities, or are you like the lone wolf that's out there just fighting the good fight?
Yeah, there's a lot, there's very little outcry. We have some Tea Party people. I'm not a Tea Party person, but we have a significant amount of Tea Party people that do a lot of rabble rousing, and it's good because, you know, most of the time the current Republicans that are in office, like I said, have been there a really long time, and they generally are there because, you know, these GOP are putting them there and keeping them there,
Sure.
and telling them what to talk about and say and stand up for. So unless you have someone that cares enough about what's going on in the local area and in the state, you're not going to find anyone stepping up to the plate, because then they're fearing they're going to lose their jobs. So
Right.
it's not a person thinking for the voters that put them there. It's actually someone that's there that's been paid for to be there and follows what they're told to follow.
That's unbelievable.
It's truly unfortunate.
It is truly unfortunate. How's your campaign going? How are things going?
Well, I went to a substantial tax last week meeting, fundraiser type of thing, and it was my very first one. It's huge, and I was really surprised. And I'm in contact. A lot of people are networking with me, so it's still really early, very early, and I'm just getting out and talking to people and getting to know people and getting people to endorse me. Endorsements are very important because politics, political people look at it and then they'll tend to side with you, which will bring in tax money.
Sure.
And voters, I want to put together a YouTube video to get maybe $1 or $2 from my thousands and thousands. I have almost 8,000 followers, so I'm hoping to put out a video towards the end of the year with my family. So it's slow right now because we're not like a president's campaign. So I'm just getting out to these people.
Yeah, but you got a great site. Your blog is doing great. I love reading your stuff.
Thank you.
It is still early because your mayor. See, here in Worcester, we're having a mayoral race this November, but you're not coming up until 2016. So you've got some time, which I thought was weird. That's why I remember in our first interview I asked you. It's like you've got the election this year. You're like, oh no, we've got it till next year. It's like I felt like an idiot on the air, but I guess it's different for every town, every state, every whatever. So, what do I know?
Yeah.
So. So yeah, you do have time. So yeah, but that's great. You're gonna do the video. But like I said, her website is absolutely fantastic, and it's gonna be up on the video when I produce it all for the page, and there'll be links there so everybody can get to it. So, Michael, you didn't even have to campaign. You just put your name on a piece of paper, and you got put in. Katherine, don't you wish it was that easy? Unbelievable.
Do nothing position.
It's a do nothing position. But anyway, yeah, we have a pretty big mayoral race going on here in Worcester, Massachusetts, and so these things. We're going to have some city council people coming on the show in the next couple of weeks. But Katherine, I want to thank you once again for coming on to the show. I can't wait to talk to you again because, you know, these problems are not going away anytime soon. And California, it just, you know, we saw that thing with Steinle. Once again, folks, California is on fire. So it's like, it just seems like it never ends for you guys down there, and it's just so amazing that you managed to have the community that you have in Irvine, California, and despite the politics, it's got to be the hard work of just the community, the people who live there, isn't it?
It is. The people that live on my block, so they've been here for 15 or 20 years. These are people that are very, very important in the community. They make sure they get to know what's going on and stay in touch. And even though they're just like everybody else, they look for the name that they know and just click the accept box. And probably things would be a little different if they didn't. But we're hoping change is coming. You can also follow me also on Politics. I write a columnist for Politics as well.
Sure. Yeah, right. I know. If you go on her blog, yeah, there is. She does write for them as well. The other thing I wanted to ask you about your community, the people that the question's actually gone out of my mind here. Anyway, I'm drawing a blank here because you mentioned that thing about politics. But give your website, give your information, and we will be talking to you very soon, Katherine.
I hope so. I enjoy talking to you.
Oh God, don't worry about it, kiddo. We have people come on all the dang time. Don't worry about it. You'll be back on probably sometime in the middle of next month. Don't worry.
You're a great guy. I appreciate it. It's KatherineDaigle.com, and you can email me there. You can talk to me there. I would love to talk to anyone. And like I said, I was born in Boston, so I love Massachusetts.
Great.
I hope you guys lots of snow.
Great. Katherine, thank you so much, and we will talk to you soon, dear.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, there you go. My good friend Katherine Daigle, calling from Irvine, California. And Mike is hanging on here with us. Good to talk to you again, Mike. So, yeah, you know, it's very interesting having people call from, we talked to a guy, Ed Baker, last week out of Portland, Oregon. Again, the Seattle Sharia thing. It seems like that whole West Coast has its head up its ass.
You think?
You would think. It's so bizarre out there. Katherine was talking, I don't know if you caught the earlier part of the show, she was talking about how in her town, it's like a whole section of her town, the power went out. Now, power goes out in everyone's town every once in a while. It's a downed line, a transformer blew, something or other. No, these guys were out for like days and days. Nobody could figure out what the heck was going on. The county or the state or somebody brought in these huge generators to power that section of the town, and then they just left them there. No police detail. And Katherine was talking about that earlier. It's like, wait a minute, don't we have like terrorists and stuff? And is anybody investigating why the power went out for this entire like section of the town? And you know, she was told, and she's saying, you know, it's infrastructure, but you know, that's kind of a loosey-goosey term. What does that exactly mean? She didn't even know herself, but you know, when somebody says, "Oh, it's infrastructure," it's like, yeah, dude, somebody hummed a freaking Molotov cocktail at the transformer station. Mike, you grew up around here. How many there? I know there's a bunch here in Worcester, and there's a bunch in Northborough. You drive around, and they've got these transformer stations in the neighborhoods. There's just a chain link fence, and there's a little brick building, and there's a bunch of towers and stuff, and those big coil things, and transformers and stuff. Any idiot could cut the fence and toss a bomb in there, and boom, you're screwed. Mike, you grew up around here. You've seen a million of those.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like what could happen, though, couldn't it?
It could.
Go ahead.
You gotta put that infrastructure. I mean, that word is like, like you put it, it's loosey-goosey. All you have to do, if you're a politician and you know what the roads are, all you gotta do is like say the word infrastructure, and everyone starts applauding.
Right. Or say
like
the word education.
Vermont.
Say the word say the word education too. Oh God, yeah, Bernie Sanders.
All you gotta do is say infrastructure.
That's one of the things I forgot.
I keep telling people this. The fact is, one, American infrastructure is spending is the highest it's ever been, world history. And two, all this is government monopoly owned, so the shoe's on the other foot.
Exactly. This is so true. I mean,
and the utilities industries, utilities have been cartelized and nationalized since the 30s, essentially. I think, Massachusetts, only 2 or 3 companies exist, National Grid and a couple other ones.
Right. It's absolutely correct. That's right.
I'm not saying everyone at National Grid that works for them is a bad guy. There's a lot of cronyism, corruption there.
Yeah, but you're right. There's only a couple of companies. It's the same thing with the gas company. There's N-Star, and that's it. Whatever company that is. I don't even think they're a New England-based company either. I think they're...
the heating bills recently?
Oh, God, yeah. They're outrageous.
Everyone keeps saying the stupid excuse, it's global warming, that's why the heat's going up. And I'm like, no, winter has always been cold. It's because they keep putting these environmental charges and jacking up the price.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, it's all fake. It's all false. Considering that we're producing more natural gas than ever before, more oil than ever before. Yeah. I mean, there is no reason. And what I love, too, see, you're a little young to remember this. I remember back during, it was quite literally just after the Gulf War, oil tumbled. I mean, we're looking at like $18, $19 a barrel.
Right.
And we were looking at gas prices of like 85 cents, 79 cents for regular gas. And people would complain, oh, I'm not putting super unleaded, it's $1.05. That's expensive. I used to laugh. It's like, it's $1.05, dude. Put the good gas in your car, for crying out loud. Spend a little bit. But what ended up happening is, before, the media mantra at the time was, well, because oil is tumbling, the economy is rebounding. People have more money. They can drive more. They can spend more. The cost of goods and services are coming down because companies don't have to pay so much for transportation costs. Everyone was touting, oh, it's part of this economic, isn't it wonderful? And I remember the 90s, the economy really did soar. Today, oil is not tumbling, but the price is falling. But instead of everybody saying what I just said, everyone's saying, oh, no, this is bad. You're going to see market collapses. You're going to see all sorts of ricochets through the economy. Oh, my God.
This economic myth in the world is that deflation, falling prices is bad for an economy. It's not. It simply means you can keep more money for yourself.
Right.
You keep exacerbating the myth that if a price goes down, that therefore the company is losing profits. That's complete Marxism. That's not how it works. If prices are going down, it's better for the consumers who can keep more of their own money, and it means that profits tend to go up for companies when prices go down because more consumers are buying their products. Just look at Walmart.
That's right. Exactly. There you go. Look at Walmart. That's a great example.
Walmart has cheaper prices. In my opinion, not that cheap. There's actually a ton of stores you can go to.
Oh, sure, right.
Typically, they have low prices, therefore they have more customers.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about scarcity, essentially. The reason that oil is up, you're right. Oil right now in America and around the world is being drilled at the most it's ever been. So it should be going down a lot more than it should be.
Exactly, right.
It should be below $2 a gallon.
It really should be. You're right. Two other things too. Again, I forgot to mention this when I was talking to Katherine, is that even in Seattle, there was, just before the Sharia report came out, there was another report that Seattle and Washington State in general is going to raise their gasoline tax. They're going to double it, because why? Because there was a report that came out that because they're all lefties up there, the amount of hybrid and electric vehicles has grown phenomenally. So what does that mean? People are buying less gasoline. So then, rather than going off of an economic model that obviously seems to be working, Notice how capitalism and free market is working there. People are buying electric vehicles because they want to, obviously. So instead of letting the market work the way the market is, the government has to get in and say, well, we're losing our revenue here, so we have to jack up the gasoline prices. I have a friend who lives in Corvallis, Oregon, and he says the gasoline prices up there are freaking outrageous. And they've got ports right there. They're on the West Coast. So
they don't need them. They don't need more revenue. I mean, I went to college in Washington, and I remember seeing the Washington State. But I was on the good half. I was in Spokane, not the crazy Sharia Seattle zone. But yeah, it's true though. The tax revenue, if you look at most states in the United States, including the West Coast, especially California, tax revenue is as high as you can get.
Sure.
You know?
Right. Sure.
All they're doing is kicking a dead horse.
And here's the other thing too. What ends up happening is, you tax yourself out of prosperity. And Mike and I have talked about this. I've said about in several of my blogs in the past. Talked to other candidates last year as well. Massachusetts economically is a net zero to a net negative economic state, meaning that, translated simply, means that businesses are neither starting here or they're just leaving.
Yeah.
Now, there are areas where they give businesses tax incentives, tax breaks, but that's a gimmick to lure them in. Basically, I said this in an interview last year when I was interviewing one of the candidates, I basically posed the question, it's like, what new startup company is looking at a map saying, let's go to Massachusetts. Why? Let's go there and start our business. Why? Because they're so good to businesses and they've got great tax incentives and it's it's not a low income, but it's a low tax state, and I think we can really make a go of it and get lots of employees. Nobody's saying that. Same thing with California. California is another net zero or net negative business growth state. It's unbelievable. What are you seeing in Framingham? See, now that you're in the city council, you're going to have to answer some questions here, buddy, so you better hit the books.
Eventually they'll ask me questions. We actually had a zoning meeting yesterday about this. They're trying to, get this. So they invite some civil servant guy who works for the town, right, on their planning board. And he invites us over to the zoning committee, and he starts asking, the very first question off the bat we ask him is, one of the gentlemen on our committee, they ask him, are you even a resident or a registered voter in this town? No, I just work for the town. So obviously there's no incentive in it. Right. He's talking about, reshaping the downtown from the MBTA zone. They want a completely different layout, and his goal is to try to attract, young people, my generation. And I'm just like, it's not going to happen. The way Framingham is designed, it's a middle-aged to elderly neighborhood, just because more younger people want to be near the main center of town. I just never could figure out why they want to, the whole concept of zoning laws really is mind-baffling. And you're right about the business growth. And if you look at what's even interesting is if you look at net immigration in Massachusetts, population trends.
Yeah.
On the whole, they keep fudging all the statistics. But when it comes down to it, more people are leaving Massachusetts. We lost a congressional seat a couple of years ago. I guarantee you, we can place a wager on this right now. We're going to lose probably another one in 2020. I wouldn't be surprised after the next census.
Sure, exactly. I wouldn't doubt that at all. We could reverse that if Baker actually made some differences and made some changes in our tax structure. It won't happen. We have a liberal Democrat controlled legislature. Many of the towns, they're just like Irvine, California. They're run by their little cliques and their little party, and they're more than happy to keep the status quo and keep things going. It's a bizarre way to think. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, the Tax Foundation has been crunching some numbers, and so has the Cato Institute and the Mises Institute. They've been looking at various state tax structures. Yes, true. Massachusetts has medium, kind of in the middle compared to the rest of the other 49 states. True, the marginal tax rate is right in the middle. But if you consider that we have Massachusetts and most of New England, except New Hampshire, the highest on the whole property taxes, sales taxes, income taxes, more excise fees, and all sorts of fees, they all abound. On the whole, if you compare it to the population and the gross state economy, it's off the wall. We're definitely in the top 10. I wouldn't be surprised in the top 5, no matter how you adjust it.
No, you're absolutely correct about that. You're absolutely correct.
The only reason that New England hasn't gone down the tubes yet is because federally, under the federal tax code, you can deduct property and income taxes from your federal taxes. And there's a lot of pretty much all the Democrats running for president, and too many Republicans, surprisingly, in the name of fairness and tax reform, that want to get rid of that one loophole that we can deduct state and local taxes from our federal force.
Right.
That's the only thing that's keeping New England afloat right now. If that, all this crap about making the tax code, 10 pages long and all this crap and getting rid of that huge loophole, if that happens, New England is done. I guarantee it.
Absolutely correct. Right. Yeah. A fair tax idea is a great idea. The only problem is well, again, it's this top-down mentality from the government. One size does not always fit all. It is exactly what it is. One size does not fit all. If you have a flat tax across the nation, well, that's a great idea, but how's it going to apply to all the individual states? Like you just said, if it happens, New England is all done because we have our screwed up tax, fee, licensing, surcharging. We have all of that on top of it. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the top of the hour. The Meat and Potato Show, Conservative Talk, Awesome Rock, broadcasting on Northern Lights Radio Network, WNLMradio.com. Been talking to Katherine Daigle from Irvine, California. My good friend Mike Coombes is sitting by, calling in from Framingham. It is the top of the hour. And Mike, you're going to have to sit by if you want to stay online. It is time for the diatribe. And ladies and gentlemen, the diatribe is not the expressed opinions of WNLMradio.com. They are my opinions. And I take full responsibility for them because we are a No Apologies radio show. The issue of removing vestiges of our heritage and labeling them as racist marks a disturbing chapter in our great republic. The demand to remove icons of our past is too uncomfortably close to what radical Islam is doing right now all over the Middle East with the destruction of ancient artifacts. Under Islam, there is only Islam, and before that was known as the Dark Time. George Orwell was very good at showing us how a totalitarian government can, and often does, erase not only the past, but people themselves. If we can successfully erase the past while simultaneously indoctrinating entire generations of children, the stage is not only set for this new world order, it comes complete with empty-headed vassals, not vessels, vassals, eager to be filled with cause and purpose. And we should ask ourselves, to what cause and to what purpose? And it is with little wonder that we see many vigilante mobs out there to enforce their doctrinaire. Black Lives Matter. In time, these groups will become more organized and better funded. They may even start wearing uniforms. Hey, it's happened before in a couple of countries, Germany and Italy. While we may view these isolated incidents and shake our heads in shame and dismay, we must be mindful that, as before, it only takes a little push to cause these disorganized elements to become concerted and organized. The various and disparate members from the NAACP to the Black Panthers, aided and morally supported by government officials, will see their efforts unchecked. They will continue to probe, incite, attack, and vandalize unchecked. They will continue to assault not only our venerable institutions, but individuals as well. The rise in violence in Baltimore, and you can even look at post-riots, is in fact a test bed. How much can they get away with? In fact, ISIS is only growing in strength and numbers and influence because no one's keeping them in check. No one from the government is telling the anti-Confederate flag people to back off. No one's telling ISIS to back off. No one from the media is reporting it. No one's telling them to stop what they're doing, keep it kind of cool. They're running unchecked. And the vandalism is rampant. And then why is this? And I'll tell you why. It's because the government political ideology that dominates America today is one that wishes to destroy that very nation that gives them that freedom to seek that very destruction. These groups have used the very tenets of our Constitution to tear it apart, and there are no more voices of reason. There is only one side or the other side. Polarization of the populace is a common tactic when a coup d'etat is at hand, and the use of enforcers is a tool, a means to an end. Confederate graves are defiled, no government entity, no media is stopping it. Calls for the destruction of the carving on the mountain in Georgia grow louder, no media, no entity is demanding that they step back. And if the forces of evil have their way and that carving in Georgia is destroyed, we will have become no better than the Taliban when they blew up the statues carved into the mountain in Afghanistan so many years ago. Does anybody remember that? And we would be no better than when ISIS blew up the ancient city of Nineveh a little over a month ago. In fact, this isn't new in history. Ancient pharaohs ordered troops and minions to destroy all remnants of the past pharaohs because they did not want people thinking that there was something that had existed before. The burning of the library at Alexandria, another attempt to destroy all of known human history and rewrite a new one. I could even say Convention of States Article 5, a way of ushering in a new type of America, a new type of American Constitution, doing away with the old one. And mark my words, folks, there's already new constitutions sitting on the shelf, just waiting for an Article 5 to be called. Well then, let's think about that. Shall we begin to destroy anything Roman, Aztec, Mayan? Shall we tear down the Sphinx in Giza? Okay, those nations had slaves. Maybe they weren't the best forms of government. Shall we destroy them and erase all the great things that they've given us? Destroying anything that which once was not only erases the past, it leaves us directionless into the future. And we can armchair quarterback our many positions on issues till we are blue in the face. There is not one nation on the face of this earth with some sordid history, both past and present. Are we to dismiss all of those nations? Especially when they have contributed to where we are today, both bad and good? Jefferson spoke about the fog of a field. Once we start adopting every single minutia of rights, groups, ideas that are outside the purview of the Constitution, will we become lost in a political field covered in fog. And we have strayed away from that very language of our most sacred document. When we have entered that foggy field that Jefferson spoke of, we have destroyed our past so that now we no longer know where we come from. And we no longer know where we're going. And as we wander around in this aimless fog, all these various groups and people demanding rights come in out of the fog and say, we should go this way. No, we should go that way. No, we should go this way. And truly directionless, we move on into a more dark and cloudy future. And allow me to leave you with this quote from 1795, a Kentucky senator, Humphrey Marshall, on factions and subgroups and all these things that keep pulling at us away from our constitutional path. I quote, "Ah, men of faction, friends of anarchy, enemies and willful perverters of the federal government, how noisy in clamor and abuse, how weak in reason and judgment appear all of your arguments." And that is the diatribe. Welcome back, Mike.
Hey.
Well, there you go. Again, we were talking earlier to Katherine about the illegals. We were talking about the minutia of the government. And one of the things I had said in that diatribe, and that was a piece that I wrote, not necessarily for the blog, but I read it to a Tea Party event that was held just a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things I was trying to say there is that, we seem to, and we were talking earlier about it, about how, if you're Christian, you can't say this, you can't do this, you have to comply to the law, you can't even impose your will upon us. But yet this subgroup, this little enclave, the Muslims, even the gays, they get to demand, they get to force, they get to tell us what to do, they get to push their agenda upon us. And again, we're in that foggy field. It's like we don't know where we're going, and we've got all these groups coming at us, and we're just trying to placate them so that everyone gets along. But we end up directionless. Go ahead, Ben.
Oh, it's interesting. The recent, tragedy shooting of the those two news reporters down
News
in
reporters,
Roanoke,
yes.
Virginia.
Yes.
Yeah. So the man who killed them, I was reading this in Breitbart. So apparently he did it out of racial motivation because he was mad. He was a black man from Virginia. He was mad that about apparently getting made fun of by white people, and he was openly gay, right? And they found in his apartment, they did an investigation. They found, rainbow flag. And I'm thinking, normally I wouldn't give a crap about, personal life. I want to, the media should cope more with the victims and everything and their families. But it got me thinking, why isn't everyone like talking about like banning that flag, banning the rainbow flag? Because if you remember, a couple months back, the whole Charleston incident, and apparently the liberal media thought, well, we can't do the gun control thing again because we know we'll lose that battle because all the, we'll just go out and buy more guns.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, so they thought, hey, we're just going to go after the Confederate flag, and what's her name? What's her name? The governor of South Carolina. And
right, she sided with it. Yeah, she was a Tea Party candidate. Right, exactly. Right.
Paul Thurman did. Even Tom Davis, state senator, very good man, for some reason. Almost everyone went along with it. I can't understand it.
Yeah, it's what I call licking your finger and holding it up to the political wind, whichever way the
this coming from a guy, born and raised, a northerner. I just don't understand it.
I really don't understand it either. But this is part of what I'm talking about, and what I said in my piece that I read there is that these things, even though they seem like they're disconnected, they're actually, over time, they're becoming more and more connected. And I don't know if you saw the early part, the very opening of the show, Debbie Was-A-Man Schultz was in Iowa giving a speech touting the Democrat line, and I only played about a minute and a half of it to intro the show, but it goes on for like 5 or 6 minutes. I think people are waking up because she's heckled, she's yelled at by people in the crowd.
Yeah, but she's a joke, though. I mean, even the Democratic Party can't take her. She's really just a PR figurehead for their national committee, No, I'm serious. But if you look at some of the more powerful ones, I mean, Hillary is coming apart right now in her campaign,
I think that's going to float. I give it to the end of the year. I'll be generous and give her to the end of the year.
But she has money. That's the thing.
Well, here's
We'll see.
Well, here's the other thing. I was having a conversation with my son, and he does know a little bit about the history of Bill Clinton, but of course I grew up and I lived through that time, and so I'm telling him about all the stuff that went on with the Rose Law Firm and Whitewater, and then I was telling him about how when he was running for governor, he was constantly grabbing broads and accused of rape, accused of sexual assault during his governor campaign, as governor, during the presidential campaign, and then even as president leading up to the Monica Lewinsky thing. I mean, you gotta have some icing on the cake. And yes, the pun was intended, icing on the cake, or icing on the dress, I should say. But I mean, but I said to him, but still, he had the money, and he had the media behind him, and he ended up being president. My son couldn't understand how that happened. I was like,
well, it's because it's not just the money. Obviously, that's important. It's because he had all the elitist establishment behind him. Everyone.
Yes.
The trilateralists.
Yes.
Everyone was behind him. To the same extent that they were behind George Bush the Elder. They backed both of them essentially.
Exactly.
I mean, when you look at and you go down a checklist of the issues and the policies, there is no difference whatsoever between those two, the first Bush and Clinton.
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
Bob Dole for that matter.
Exactly. He was another trilateral guy too. So yeah, I would give Hillary the end of the year before she implodes or the campaign implodes. But I concur with you. She's got the money.
Yep.
I think it won't matter. I got news for you folks. I bet you she could be found guilty, and during 2016, not only will she be running for president, she'll be hobnobbing in between federal court during her trial.
Oh, she could get elected while indicted. I guarantee it. Because, the media, they'll just be like, oh, you hate her, the sexist feminist crap.
Yeah, they'll play that.
But I'm starting to get old.
But imagine that.
What's worrying me though is Sanders. That's where I'm starting to get worried because he, even though not nearly as powerful, obviously, but from a voting rights perspective, his voting record, and his ideology, it's even worse.
It is worse. The guy, But I do give Bernie Sanders credit because at least he admits he's a socialist. Hillary cannot admit that she's a criminal, so I have no respect for her. If Hillary said I'm a criminal, I'd be like, you know what? I have a little bit of respect for her. I'm still not voting for her, but you know, I won't say anything bad anymore about Hillary Clinton. At least she admitted she was a criminal. But that's not. At least Bernie Sanders admits he's a socialist. But here's the thing that pisses me off about people like Bernie Sanders and even the O'Malley guy.
Well, it's a victimology thing. He's acting like he's, you know, for the minorities and the poor. Look at all his supporters. The average Bernie Sanders supporter is either some college punk who never, you know, no offense, never held a job in their life, or is some old white guy that's, you know, that's in the middle to, you know, upper class.
Exactly.
Look at all the pictures.
Well, the other thing that really burned my brisket is I watched both Bernie Sanders crumble under Black Lives Matter and I watched O'Malley crumble under Black Lives Matter. Hillary Clinton was able to hold them off, but through a technicality. She held them off because I guess the room she was in was at capacity, and actually I guess people from the hotel or the fire marshal or somebody had said, no, there's nobody else allowed in the room because we're at capacity. A technicality. I'm actually waiting, and you know what's going to happen. I'm waiting for Donald Trump to give one of his press conferences, and these Black Lives Matter people try to show up. I want to be in front of the television. And I want to be there personally. I want to be there. I know. Wouldn't it be awesome?
Don't get me wrong. I want to have a gun on me, but I want to be there.
I know, really, because you never know what the hell's going to
I saw Trump personally up in Hampton a couple weeks ago.
Good for you.
What's his name? Tom Duggan.
Yeah, Tom Duggan, right.
Yeah, we were up there. We saw him personally. He gave a rousing speech. But I was looking at the demographics, and it was everybody. It was young people, like college people, you know, my age, but it was also like elderly, middle class, you know, it was, you know, whites, blacks, Hispanics, you know, male, female, it's everybody, you know. When you look at the Sanders crowd, it's the same, it's the old white people.
Really? Seriously? That's interesting.
Yeah,
Thanks for that insight. That's great.
And obviously it's because he's, you know, he's a celebrity and, you know, all that, you know. But I mean, it's just in a small town. You go to Hampton on a normal day, it's just a small town, you know.
I got news for you. The celebrity status is one of the things I think is going to carry Trump. It was one of the things. It was one of the things that you saw with Reagan, and we hadn't seen that since Kennedy. Kennedy had celebrity status. It was one of the things that helped bring him into the White House. Celebrity status for Ronald Reagan also helped bring him into the White House.
Right.
Again, it's not the main thing. It was a major factor, though. It really, really was.
There's a big style difference, though. Kennedy and Reagan, and you know, in their own ways, they were like, you know, they were actors essentially. They played a script.
Sure. Right. Exactly. Right.
Because Trump is a populist to the core, even though he flip-flopped. You know, he's flip-flopped on everything over the years. But you know, and you've seen this throughout American history. You've always seen like the outsiders. You know, in the 90s, I guess you know, Pat Buchanan, Ross Perot.
Ross Perot, thank you.
You know, even though, you know, despite all their differences, where it gets interesting, though, is what's going to happen in a few months, you know, in 2016. When it comes to the primaries, I mean, if Trump can hold of
his double-digit lead, that you make a great point, and I have said that before on several different shows.
What I'm getting scared of, and what all the other ones, like, you know, Michael Savage, Alex Jones, all the, you know, the big radio talk show hosts are saying, you know, is Trump going to pull a Perot? You get where I'm going with this?
I do understand that. I do understand that.
And if he drops out, there's a huge power vacuum. No one would know what to do, you know, on primaries, who to vote for.
I don't think he will. I hope he doesn't. I don't think he will. I'm hedging my bet on that.
Yeah.
Here's what it hinges on, though, is his overwhelming lead. If that begins to slip and falter, something happens, and going into 2016, it starts to slip.
You realize why he can talk this way, right? It's because it's the same thing with Perot, because he's spending his own money.
He's spending his own money, and why not? And what's wrong with that?
The FEC, as corrupt and terrible as the Federal Elections Commission is, this is the one big loophole. As long as it's your own money, you can spend it no matter, you know, however the way you want to. Whereas all the other guys, whether it's Jeb Bush, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, they can act anti-establishment all they want. But when it comes down to it, they got to still please the PACs, and they got to go through the process of raising money. So they can attack others, but they can only do it on an ideological basis. If you follow me on the issues.
I do.
It can't be like Trump. It can't be like Trump and calling out John McCain. Everyone in the media hated it. I was applauding because John McCain, they kept saying this, the whole war hero controversy, and Trump is right. He's not really a war hero. He got captured. That's why he's famous, and that gives him license to say, whatever he wants when it comes to, he's now the head of the Armed Services Committee.
Right.
He basically wants to bomb every country. He's the biggest tax raiser.
Yeah.
His voting record is terrible.
Yeah.
And everyone feels bad for him because, he was a war hero in Vietnam. No, he was a POW. That's not necessarily the same thing.
And if we, I know, and they're arguing mostly over semantics too. They're arguing over the words and the language that's being used. And like Debbie Wasserman Schultz said, that, this vulgar word that I can't repeat. The problem that we have here in this country is that we're just so afraid now to speak out our mind and point at something and look at it for what it really is, because we have fear of repercussions of it. And what ends up happening is the problem that we're afraid to point to and call it out as such continues to exacerbate. What is happening now with Donald Trump's, I'm going to use the word vitriol, if you want to call it. Okay, I'll use the word vitriol. What is happening is basically he's saying the very same thing that everybody else in the country is just thinking, but they're just too afraid to say. And it's refreshing. This brings me back to what I said about his celebrity status. You're right. He's got his own money. He can spend it, and he can say what he wants, and he can do what he wants. This is a rare thing in American politics. You just said it. You pack money.
And like I said, you see it every now and then with the outsiders. 92, 96, it was Perot or Pat Buchanan.
I understand where you're going, though, but I think we're in a different time now. But I hedge my bets. His numbers need to remain high. If his numbers remain in the double digits that they are now, and he's like what, 9-10 points ahead, even behind. There was a, what was it? There was some.
No one else comes close.
There was a poll. There was a poll just on Fox News, not on Fox News. One of the Zogby poll, I think it was. And that Carson is now behind him, but even he's in double digits. But he's still like 9-10 points behind. This is what has to happen. He's got to go into the primary in New Hampshire and Iowa next year, still holding that.
Yeah.
And he's got to go into maybe even a couple. In fact, as the year goes on, he could even come in second place in this state. He could even come in third place in a couple of states. But as long as his popularity and his numbers remain high and double digit, there's no reason for him to call third party. There's no reason for him to do it.
No, that's right. And that's where all the other ones, that's where Perot, Buchanan, we can go even further back, George Wallace, whoever, that's where they all failed with the third party effort because of the way our electoral college is set up.
Right.
But Trump can pull it off, I think, if he keeps the momentum. The Democrats, on the other hand, 3 of them, they're just a joke. Jim Webb is a joke, Lincoln Chaffee is a joke, and Martin O'Malley really is a joke.
Yeah.
So it's really between Hillary and Sanders. Hillary could probably muscle her way through it with money and votes in the fastest feminist, whatever you want to call it, media. But if Sanders gets it, he could very well get the nomination. But if Sanders gets the nomination, no matter who the Republicans put up, even if it's like Jeb Bush or Christie,
they won't go with Sanders.
Sanders it'll be a huge defeat for Sanders.
Right.
But he could get the nomination. I can see it.
He could, and even if he doesn't, he could split the ticket even at the convention. There could be a delegate fight, that kind of thing that always goes on. And then, of course, there's the ever-present drunk Uncle Joe Biden. He's
I don't know. It's all talk. I'd be pretty surprised if Biden gets in on it.
I don't know. The talk is serious, but yeah, you're right.
I could see him. I could see it happening, but I mean, it's kind of late at this point.
Sure. Yeah.
And Obama obviously has to keep his mouth shut because it's between his former Secretary of State. But if she doesn't get the nomination, it's kind of embarrassing. So he can't make any endorsement. So he's just playing the holier than thou. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut about it until the presumably till the Democratic convention.
Yeah, and he's got Loretta Lynch, so there's going to be probably no investigation into her server or anything. You think she's guilty on that, Hillary?
Yeah, King.
Yeah, really.
It's like Lewis Lerner, you know. I mean, I believe, I'm Bigfoot's more likely to exist than Lewis Lerner's, emails were accidentally deleted, you know.
Exactly right. Exactly. Yeah, this is so true. This is so true. When I delete something, it's intentional. I know I've deleted it, and the reason why, the only thing I can fault her on is that, if she says, "Well, I don't know what I've deleted," because I'm the same way. It's like I delete stuff, and it's like I can't remember.
It's like the whole State Department controversy with Hillary's emails. Yes, it was technically legal. There's no law that says that she has to use the emails in the .gov portal, but it's very unethical and suspicious. It should obviously be investigated. Who cares whether or not it's legal?
Sure, right.
And they keep going back to and this is where it gets interesting. None of the Republicans, even Trump, will talk about this. They talk a lot about Benghazi. All you got to do is just say the word Benghazi, and it kind of raises all the flags.
Mm-hmm.
But why does that? What was so special about that? What was special was, the ambassador got killed, back in 2012. What's his name? Jake Stevens. Yeah. Well, the reason why did he get killed is because he was making a lot of deals. His staff, at least, I don't know so much about the ambassador himself, but his staff were making a lot of deals with Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, all those governments. When it came to shipping arms out of Libya, that was a main port at the time. And who was connected with that? It was ISIS.
Mm-hmm.
Before, ISIS technically existed way back in 1999. You can trace it back that far.
Yes.
But no one in the Middle East heard of ISIS before 2012. It's because they were trying to stage a counter coup against Assad in Syria.
Yes.
So if the Republicans, if they could actually, Rand Paul kind of touches on it, but he backs off. If they could actually pursue the Benghazi scandal with the emails and say, hey, she created ISIS, actually come straight out of it, and to hell with the media. They could actually prove a huge scandal, but they're too scared to go too far.
I think they are too.
They're just going to keep saying Benghazi, but that's it.
Right, and I personally, I'm getting sick and tired of listening to Trey Gowdy talk. He talks a good game. He says he has all the evidence. Well, if you have all the evidence, then next time Hillary shows up at a campaign stop, have the provost marshal arrest her, and then she's under arrest.
Well, it's like the Fast and Furious scandal a couple of years ago. They talked a big game. They held subpoenas and everything. Hey, bring what's his name? They always had Eric Holder come in all the time. A lot of questioning, a lot of talk. But it was all talk. No one went to jail. No one was arrested or indicted.
Sure, right.
We need to, and everyone looks at me like I'm crazy when I say this.
Sure.
We need to bring back the old-fashioned 1950s era House Un-American Activities Committee and just have a complete crazy subpoena.
Clean house.
Top to bottom. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. And it's so funny how history comes back and bites us in the ass. Joe McCarthy. Hey, we can go around all day arguing about his tactics, but God damn it,
his tactics were great.
God damn it, he was right. He was absolutely 100% correct, because we see it all here today, and it's in our face. And now that it's in our face, I mean, we just seem to have such a big problem actually discussing it, and it really aggravates me. Hey, listen, I got to take a real quick break. It's the bottom of the hour. The Meat and Potato Show, conservative talk, awesome rock, broadcasting on Northern Lights Radio Network. I got to play a tune here. I got to get some stuff going here, and we'll be right back after the tune, and we'll be talking with Mike Coombes some more. If you want to stick around, Mike, it's up to you, man.
Yeah, sure.
No, you hang. Is that a hotel you're at? Where are you?
No, I'm at my apartment, man.
It looks like there's a hotel. There's another computer console behind you.
No. It's downstairs. We're in the lobby downstairs.
Oh, there you go. All right.
Yes, my building.
Oh, right. There you go. All right. Meat and Potatoes. We'll be right back. Here's some Yes Live. We'll be right back.